After something in excess of 20 years of feminine and left-wing thought in general absolutely dominating every sphere of life, from the private to the public, from entertainment to politics, right-wing extremism is still on the rise. That's kind of remarkable, honestly. You'd think after 2 decades worth of near-complete cultural dominance, this would be stamped out by now, if it indeed was as good a solution to our problems as the left seems to think it is, and yet it's starting to look like the left is the problem and the cause of the right-wing extremism rather than a solution to it. But noticing the common denominator in all of this would of course be extraordinarily sexist. So instead of coming to the rather reasonable, it seems now, conclusion that women simply cannot provide an adequate solution to the problem of young men and boys because they fundamentally do not think like them and cannot understand them, let us instead double down. Yes, extremism in gaming spaces, a policy for prevention and moderation piece written by Claudia Wollner, Dr. Jessica White, and Petra Regini. Ah yes, if 2 decades of female dominance didn't provide a solution, surely another 10 years can't hurt, right? This is a rather amusing little article, as all of these women are pretty much exactly what you'd think. Specializing in terrorism and conflict research, specializing in the prevention and countering of violent extremism with an emphasis on far-right extremism. Oh my. Is this going to be a bit of a red thread, I wonder? Her expertise encompassing counterterrorism and violent extremism policy, and program with a focus on gender mainstreaming and strategies. Petra Pragini. Petra's expertise encompasses radicalization, extremism, and prevention and countering of violent extremism, primarily in Europe and neighboring regions. Yes, I do believe there's a bit of a red thread here. Considering that over the course of the last, 40 years, there's only been a single right-wing terrorist attack with casualties in the double digits, that being Anders Breivik. I don't know if this is really that important of a field of specialization, honestly. I wonder. This Royal Institute here, which isn't actually a part of the British government, mind you, is a registered charity and non-partisan think tank. A non-partisan think tank. Really now? Funding itself independently? That's odd. Why are you non-partisan? Well, apparently because their income depends on being non-partisan. Except, of course, they're not getting any, funding from any particular organizations or anything. It's all from membership subscriptions, from sales of various publications, and research contracts. Absolutely. And it's definitely not funded by any major governments or anything. The Institute receives no core government funding, which is why it can remain a non-partisan think tank. Let's see at their funding here. The United States Department of State. That's a non-government entity right there. The Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office. .gov UK. Another non-governmental entity, I'm sure, and the European Commission. Oh, and the British Army, by the way, and Google as well, just in case, and the European Climate Foundation. Yes, a privately funded organization primarily drawing its income from, selling magazines. Yes, non-partisan indeed. Anyways, this article is rather lengthy, and we won't go through all of it, but I want to go through some of the highlights here. Online experiences, including gaming, are becoming integral to daily life. That is correct. Gaming is not merely the fastest growing form of entertainment, it is also probably one of the fastest growing forms of social interactions, particularly when paired with social media. Violent extremism and terrorism are increasingly exploiting these spaces, while current research recognizes the role of extreme content such as hate speech, conspiracy theories, and disinformation. In reducing resilience to radicalization to violence, there are still significant gaps in addressing these issues within gaming spaces. Oh my, I wonder what the solution will be. With gaming culture expanding rapidly and blending with popular entertainment culture, there's a pressing need to bridge these gaps in both research and policy. So far, research on gaming extremism has been limited to anecdotal evidence and a small number of pilot studies and theoretical exploration. That is also largely true, where we find things like 1 in 4 women receive abuse online. That's dreadful. Especially when we take into consideration that more men than women actually receive abuse online. But hey, details. Forbes isn't going to write an article about that, now are they? Because that wouldn't be non-partisan enough, would it? And again, the entire focus here is on right-wing extremism. That's the problem. The growing right-wing extremism. Externalizing socialization with nexus to radicalization across gaming, which helps build an evidence based on the effects of toxicity, harassment, and hate-based discrimination on an individual users, particularly against gender-based analysis on the LGBTQ blah 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 groupings. Wow, that's weird. See, here's the thing. I don't actually think right-wing radicalization is the most pressing problem right now. I in fact think that left-wing radicalization appears to be by far the biggest problem, as they're starting to attack Tesla factories and facilities all over the place. Attacking people, outright assassinations might be one of the things that happened just the other day. Not to mention the absolute ludicrous self-divorce from reality that some of them have embraced. Like this one here. So, important message for all my Canadian game developer friends and colleagues. If you are attending GDC in San Francisco next week, I beseech you to reconsider. You can no longer expect to travel to the US and return safely. Ah yes. The Trumpian death squads. I seem to remember these having supposedly popped up in the last presidential period as well, and yet never really emerging. And yet, Canadian games developers are now worried about going to San Fran on the fear that they won't be allowed to return to Canada safely. Yes. These are clearly not radicalized in the slightest. These are sane and normal individuals that haven't gone completely and utterly insane over the course of the last half year or something. Absolutely not. We've got to focus in on that pesky right-wing extremism. And how are we going to do it? Well, we are going to be targeting based on popular game genres. We are going to be inserting propaganda into things that people like. Policymakers should therefore collaborate with game developers and platform providers to create voluntary, unobtrusive, countering violent extremism programs. Intervention target platforms and games genres based on their relevance and popularity with gamers. Oh wow. Okay, how are we gonna make this non-intrusive exactly? A giant ad in Call of Duty going, remember, right-wing extremism is the real terrorism. Improve awareness of reporting tools. You know what? That is the one point in all of this that I do actually agree with. See, none of this is actually a problem. If you're being harassed online, there is practically not a single instance of an online platform that doesn't have a block feature, and usually a report feature as well. And if people would actually apply it, all of these problems would simply disappear. But hey, if that was to happen, well, it would be far more difficult to get £1 million or so from the U.S. Department of State, wouldn't it? Yes, far more difficult, unfortunately. Offer more educational initiatives for gamers. Good old-fashioned re-education camps. The observed normalization of harassment and toxicity, talking shit over the internet, a hallowed and well-understood part of gaming culture since the very beginning, and again, crucially, this is what the women who are now writing these reports don't understand. Men have a very different way of socializing with other men than women do. Women will go, oh hey, you look beautiful in that. Tiffany looks like an absolute whore in those heels. That's not men. We'll go, hey bro, that shirt looks hideous. It's all up in your face. Talking shit is a bonding experience. Calling each other names is a positive part of our friendship, okay? What you call harassment and toxicity, we call friendship half the time. And again, if there is actual abuse, the solution already exists. Gender design responsive strategies. Female and LGBTQ gamers face unique challenges in gaming spaces. What are these unique challenges? Well, it isn't being bullied more so than others, although admittedly, LGBTs do get bullied more often, probably because gay is a, negative slang term in many cases. But, okay, the negative challenges here isn't necessarily that you receive more abuse, as we saw, men receive more of it. It is that you are not capable of handling it. That is the key problem here. Unironically, growing a thicker skin will solve this. If somebody calls you gay on the internet, that should not reduce you to crying, preferably. Utilize online engagement for positive influence. Now, you know what, this one too is something that I do agree with in theory. Rewarding positive behavior is good. More bonuses for team play in games. More rewards for upvotes, for example, by giving access to unique in-game loot. Rewarding people helping people is actually good, but all of this comes from a left-wing perspective. It isn't rewarding somebody for playing a game of Dota, say, for example, and being positive and cheering people up and getting lots of upvotes at the end of the match. That's not what they want to reward. They want to reward left-wingism, anti-right-wingism. Leverage existing influence and relationship. Influencers and content creators have established relationships with diverse audiences within gaming communities. You know that whole idea about they pay people to push this? Yeah. That is actually the official policy position. That is the recommendation, is go to influencers and pay them money to side with you, okay? That is actual literal governmental policy. And bearing in mind the amount of money on display yet again, if you suddenly have a content creator taking on a bit of a left-wing bent, well, it's not guaranteed, but you certainly can't completely ignore the possibility that they have received a check or two. Promote allyship programs, and again, left-wingism. None of this has actually got anything to do with minimizing harassment. It's about reducing right-wing thought, or what is seen as male normative behavior. All of this. None of this has anything to do with actual good gaming procedures, because, as you may have noticed, none of our good doctors and experts here actually have any sort of expertise on video games. Now, that seems like a little bit of an overlooked thing, isn't it? Considering that's kind of what we're talking about here. Oh, weird. Strange indeed. And recommendations. Develop regulatory frameworks to address online harassment. This is the idea of victimization, that we need to make it illegal and regulated, first and foremost by punishing the companies. Evidence of exposure of harm in gaming spaces indicates that it is vital to build frameworks that require transparency and accountability for digital platforms. This is a stick with which to beat the platforms themselves. It is to go to the gaming company and go, if you don't police your chat for hate speech, we're going to fine you. If you don't enforce our view of hate speech policies, we are going to fine you. This is, as I've talked about before, the left wing targeting the corporations. The right, by and large, target individuals. We hold individuals responsible for their behavior, and when we wish to see different behavior, we usually encourage that different behavior and or punish what we view as negative behavior. Whereas the left near universally skips the personal step and goes to the corporate. They aren't going to be interested in, as I mentioned earlier, rewarding you for receiving a positive score in a video game. They are going to go to the company so that they will enforce a punishment on your negative actions, or else they will be fined. And that, of course, leads directly into strengthening platform-level moderation efforts via force yet again. You will do this, or we will fine you. Enhance moderated trading to address toxicity and identity-based exclusion. The third point. Implement gender sensitivity training for moderators. And that, of course, is the fourth and final point, indoctrination. So, increase moderation, force the companies to moderate, punish the companies if they do not moderate, and the fourth and final point is to determine what should be moderated, which is where they're going to implement gender sensitivity training, which is literally just left-wing brainwashing at this point. Straight up. There is no right-wing gender sensitivity training. This is not a bipartisan issue. This is not unpolitical. This is one political organization exclusively that views this as an important factor, thus the indoctrination point. And finally, of course, fund games that do what we want them to do, because that is the only way they can be made. A video game like Dustborn could not be created without governmental funding. This, incidentally, is also one of the reasons why we do need to build up some of our own games and support games that we do want to succeed, rather than merely wielding the stick and only the stick. The stick is used as a means of chastisement, but we must also be able to create something separate, because, well, the opposition have the opportunity to not need to pay their own money to reward a game. They can simply go to the government. Again, the communists, the left-wingers, they skip the personal step and they go straight to the corporate and the governmental step to enforce what they want to have happen. And of course, this needs to happen everywhere and every level, with no exceptions whatsoever. The ability for boys and men to play video games they enjoy must be crushed on a global basis, says our well-informed panel of 3 women. Fantastic. Paid, of course, by the government. I do adore that. You are paid by the government to give the government the argument they want. Now the government can come out and say, right, well, an independent think tank has decided that online extremism is a real problem that we have to crack down on. We've got the experts on our side telling us what to do. And at no point did we ever dictate to them what they need to be saying. We just wrote them a check for £1 million. It is actually genuinely remarkable to see how blatantly the game is played. And yet, it is also very effective. Yeah, no, £1 million bribe does indeed buy you exactly the report you want to see. It does indeed justify exactly the measures and the means that you want to have implemented. Shocking, I know. And the only way to get around this is, in essence, to build an entirely separate industry to this, which is already what we are well on the way of doing, building up our own video games, our own preferred institutions, and also beginning to chip away at government itself. Now, America has come by far the furthest in that endeavor, but even across Europe, understanding of stuff like this is beginning to emerge. It is beginning to be understood as just common sense that, you know, the opposition is largely bought We can see the goddamn receipts. That's the most hilarious part about modern day bureaucracy. The receipts are right there. They're simply buried under so many levels of bureaucracy, under so much paperwork, over so many tabs, that actually finding it requires far more digging and research than the average person is ever interested in actually doing. Particularly as, again, nobody's ever going to look up this particular report. And if they are, they're probably not going to check out the people's qualifications. And if they do, they're probably not going to go to the site itself and check where their funding is coming from, etc. They're just going to hear the talking point from a politician saying the experts are on our side. I'm starting to think that right-wing extremism isn't really the problem at all. I'm starting to think women are the problem, and have been all along. Oh well, the more things change, the more they stay the same, I guess. Until next time, I've been Arch. Thank you all very much for watching, and I hope to see you all again soon. Till then, have a good day.